Hello and welcome to the Coder Kids podcast. On this latest episode, we have a special guest. He's here with me right now. His name is Steve Cheldy Assoé, and he is going to, so super welcome. We're going to talk
Yeah,
today. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. We are a big fan of the color blue, it looks like. And then also, we're going to be talking today about NFTs and art. So basically, the intersection of digital technology and art specifically, and how that works, and kind of dive into that as well. So, first up, a question that we start off asking quite frequently is, how did you get into technology? But I'm going to ask you, how did you get into art, and like what were your first experiences with that? And then separately, like how did you get into technology?
Okay, so basically, how I got into art is I've always been the kind who liked fashion
Okay.
initially. So I used to always wear like nice clothes, do different styles. And then I was at in college, a guy was like, "Oh wow, I really like your style. I do like stylings too, and I do photo shoots. So
Okay.
do you want us to do photo shoots together?" And that's how it started. And we used to just use a digital camera, but like put it on automatic, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then from those photos, a photographer sort of like messaged me and was like, "Oh, I like your pictures. Do you know how to take pictures and do you want to take pics?" And we linked up from that, and that's where I learned how to actually use a camera on
Mm.
manual and stuff like that. And that was my first step really into like art. And then I got into videography. I shot a short film with a bunch of artists from my hometown where I live, Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got also into music production. And then, like, so I was doing a little bit of everything art wise, a bit of fashion, a bit of music, a bit of photography, a bit of videography, editing, all that type of stuff.
Wow.
So always had like this sort of art side of me, right? And at the same time, I was studying business at university, and specialized in
Oh wow.
marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now, so like,
There's
I
like a
was
lot of
doing that
stuff
too
going
full
on.
time.
It's
Yeah.
like all coming together.
Yeah, basically. And then I chose last year to start my master's in marketing,
Mm.
and I'm doing my thesis right now. And I was wondering, what am I going to do for my thesis? What am I going to do? And then I'm on Twitter randomly, and I'm seeing, oh, this guy that sold an NFT for 69 million. I'm like, I don't know what's an NFT. I just scroll by
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I see
yeah.
that again. So I'm like, wait, 69 million for art, what's an NFT? I gotta click on it just to know what it is, you know?
Sure, yeah.
And that's how I got into like that world. And the second I saw like, oh, it's a digital piece of art that sold for this much. I was at the time was like, you can just like left click save, right? So why is it worth this much? Why is it selling for $69 million? And
Well,
that's how I
a
got
little bit
into
of a
the
joke
world.
too,
Yeah, exactly, right?
because 69 is a funny number
Yeah.
on the internet, right? So,
Yeah.
and I think the artist you're referring to is Beeple, right?
Yeah,
So,
Beeple, exactly.
which
And
I
that's
would
really
not
how. Mhm.
recommend looking up around children. I'm
Oh,
just gonna put that out there. Please do
yeah.
not. So,
Yeah, exactly. Some of his work is quite R-rated sometimes, so
yeah,
it's not the.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
he's an interesting guy. He's an artist, and it's how I found out about
mhm,
NFT. I think that made a huge splash, like all of the world
mhm,
over, right? It was on, The Verge and New York Times and CNN and
yeah.
just everywhere. And
Yeah.
so it sounds like I wasn't the only one who found out about it then, right? But yeah, go ahead.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't just you. So like that's how I found it, and that was exactly at the same time when I was wondering what my thesis is gonna be about.
Sure.
Therefore, I chose NFTs. So since that day, like I've been reading, researching, participating in NFTs every day since, like so that's really how I really got into NFTs, what they are, and studying that and specializing into what NFTs are.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
No,
that's great. It's kind of nice that you had it almost delivered to you on a silver platter in that like it actually is fundamentally new technology. And so
yeah,
it's just like it happened to kind of coincide there. That's really neat. Sometimes things happen
yeah,
like that, right? The universe is
right?
like, "Hey, I'm going to give you one, man.
Yeah,
Uh
exactly.
hey Steve, check this out." So it's
Basically.
it's like of course all the time we waste on social media, it's like it's good that at least something good came out of it. I mean, a
Hmm.
similar thing
Right?
happened to me. I there's a Facebook ad before I
Okay.
used an ad blocker that it was like an ad for a job that was like you can make $20,000 in a summer or something, and I thought like this is
Hmm.
ludicrous. I'm clicking on this, and then
Yeah.
I was like a sales guy for like 5 different summers, and I actually did make $20,000 in a summer, which was
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
But that was something
Wow.
that changed my life, and from marketing, like you gotta
Hmm.
learn to hear no a lot, and that was
Yeah.
something really cool that blessed my life. But yeah, it came on Facebook strangely. Um, I've since
Right?
left the platform and deleted my profile. The platform on there, or like the profile that I have on there now, is just like the Coder Kids kind of business profile. But
Yeah. Hmm.
I'm not even friends with my wife on Facebook now. So like I'm not friends with anyone.
Yeah.
So no offense there, but it's interesting how stuff kind of evolves and the universe just kind of hooks you up sometimes. So well, that's really
Yeah.
cool. So that's how
Hmm.
you got into the NFT. What
Yeah.
was it like? So you almost got into technology because of art. Is that kind of right? Or did
Yeah.
you already always have technology around the house, or did you play
Uh,
video games as a kid, or tell me a little bit about
Um,
that.
yeah, I've always liked technology where I can make stuff.
Mm,
So like I've always been into like for example knowing everything about the new phones, the new computers, the new types of technology to film,
mm,
make art. So I personally never have been much of a like gamer. I play video games here and
sure.
there, but I've never been like a gamer who likes to game. Like I know a lot of friends like that, but that's not me. But I
Right.
really appreciate like technology um overall, and really it's more my art interest that really got me even more into knowing more about technology, right? Because I
Mm,
want to know all the different tools that are out there to make that art. So that's really more my intersection with technology. And funny enough, NFTs are bringing me closer now with like the gamer community because it's really prominent within like gaming, right? Like
sure.
very, very prominent. So it's it's really interesting like that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It'd be interesting to see like if I could, rip you out of space time and put you like in the past or in the future. It's almost
Hmm.
like our paths would be different. It'd be interesting to see. For you, it's like, yeah, you'd be like a musician or a painter or something.
Yeah.
Before like videos existed, maybe you'd be like working with
Hmm.
film or something. But it's
Yeah.
interesting that like you're in this moment and you're kind of like riding on this like bleeding edge and this kind of like new wave. So great.
Hmm.
It's a great time to be alive. I know a lot of people are like, poo poo on like 2020, and 2020 was rough. Let's be real. But,
Yeah.
but there are some cool things that are happening. And,
Yeah.
it's anyway, so I'm excited to see like where you go from here. So what kind
Hmm.
of art is it that you produce? You said, you do video, you do photography, you actually know
Yeah.
how to use a camera now, which is great. I'm still learning,
Yeah.
obviously. I just bought kind of an entry level Sony camera, um,
Okay, yeah. Sony's
and
are good though for video.
I'm hoping on the next episode of the podcast, hopefully I'll be using that
Exactly.
camera instead of this Logitech one. But
Yeah.
so what kind of art are you making for NFTs? And just like, can you describe base level, like what is an NFT? What does it stand for? And like,
Yeah.
what is it really?
Okay, yeah. So for the first part of the question, in terms of the art I make, for photography, I usually do portrait photography, so
Mm-hmm.
usually a single or two individuals, and it's really like a personal level type of photo shoot. So we usually talk before about like what is gonna be the idea behind it, what they're into, what I'm into, where we can find a middle ground and do something. Videography, it's usually gonna be around music artists or dancers, and musically, it's gonna be I do a lot of like hip hop, rap, R&B, so that type of like music production, and I work with artists. So that's really the type of art I do mostly. I have
Mm.
not yet done an NFT for myself,
Oh, okay.
even though I've looked at the process of minting NFTs,
Sure.
making NFTs, and to be honest, and then to sell NFTs, one of the main things you need is a good enough community.
Mm.
Community is something that comes a lot within the NFT world. So, just to give an example, almost any NFT project and artist creates a Discord and tries to foster and build their community, right?
Yeah.
Because community is really important within that world. So that's why a lot of gamers, you see, there's a lot of gamers going into the NFT community too, right? Because they're already used to the discords, they're already used to buying skins, for examples, on video games. So they understand the value of digital items already.
Yeah.
So this is actually a very good segue into like what is an NFT.
Yeah.
So like an NFT stands for non-fungible tokens, and it represents anything digital, a digital asset. So when I try to explain it to younger people, it's super easy. They're the ones that actually get it first. I
Sure.
usually tell them, "Do you play video games?" They usually say yes. Then I say, "Did you ever buy a skin?" They will say yes, and then I'll
Yeah.
be like, basically that's like an NFT. It's buying something to own a digital asset, right? Because you see value in that digital asset for whatever reason you want,
Yeah.
and it's a bit more hard for older people to understand it because they're like, it's digital, it's not a real thing, right? They're so
Sure.
used to something real. And for them, how I will explain it is I will say it's basically a certificate of authenticity and ownership. How is that relevant? Let's say you want to buy a Picasso, right?
Sure.
To buy the Picasso, it'll be 50 million at an auction house. But when you buy that Picasso, you're not only getting the Picasso, you're also getting a paper which has an appraisal from a bunch of professionals, and that is the certificate that tells you this is the original, authentic Picasso, and now you are the owner.
Sure.
I can go to on Times Square and probably find 1,000 different fakes of that same Picasso, right? And that maybe most people who aren't pros or have the correct machines won't be able to say that it's a fake.
Sure.
Therefore, why would somebody go buy the real one for 50 million, what 50 millions, right? It's because it's the real thing and you have the certificate saying this is the actual real thing and you're the sole owner right now. And
Yeah.
there's value into that, at least for some rich people, at least, I guess. So it's the exact same thing. Why would you care about something digital when I can just do left click and copy paste it, right? And I have the image myself. You can do that, but you don't have the certificate that says that you actually own the original piece. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
That's like the best way that I can explain like a non-fungible token so that like people usually get it from there.
And
So
there can't be
that's yeah.
two. And I think that's the
Yeah.
the thing where there's
Hmm.
that's a little bit different than say like a Fortnite skin that everyone can
Hmm.
buy, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone can get the latest skin in Fortnite. I'm not gonna say one, even though I know a million of them, because they're
Yeah.
they're they're new ones like almost every
Hmm.
day now.
Yeah.
And it's because like Yeah, it's just pure ownership. It's almost like pure
Yes,
bragging rights in a way. And
basically.
for some, and it's very similar to crypto as well, right?
Yeah,
So in
yeah.
how it functions, right? So the so you where would you go to buy
Okay,
an
that's a
NFT? That's
yeah.
that's actually a question I have. I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Okay, perfect, perfect. I'll say two things. The first part where you said that it's unique and nobody and like you can't fake it, you're the only one who owns it, right?
Hmm.
That is very true. The somebody that creates an NFT to sell it, right? He might create a one of one, so it's unique, or let's say just five or 500 or 10,000 of them, right?
Mm.
And then that is put on something that we call the blockchain, right? It's basically like
And
a,
which blockchain?
the Ethereum blockchain.
Ethereum. Okay.
Ethereum, my bad, excuse my French.
It's all good.
Ethereum,
It's
yeah.
fine. No, it's good.
Yeah, on the Ethereum blockchain. That's basically like a permanent digital ledger that is immutable. Nobody can change it the second it's put on there. It's there forever. It
Yeah.
can't be changed by nobody, and it's not owned by any one entity, right? So it's basically a trustless digital ledger, and nobody can change anything, as I said. Therefore, if you own an NFT, it's written on there, and anybody in the world has access to the ledger to see that you actually own that. So, as you said, it's basically bragging rights. You can say to anybody, I own this, and nobody else, or just like 100 other people own it. And that's how we're unique, you know?
Yeah.
And is just another way of bringing in value. People do that all the time, every day. Why do people buy a Mercedes versus a Toyota, even if both cars brings you to place A to B? One brings more status, more bragging rights, more whatever, right?
Hmm.
So it's around the same thing. And for your second question, which is where can you buy NFTs? There's quite a few platforms now where you can go and buy them. A
Okay.
popular one, well, you probably heard of NBA Top Shots, right? Maybe you didn't.
Oh, not
It's
me. Yeah.
okay, okay, okay. It
I'm
became
not
quite
I'm not big
popular.
into sports, guys.
Okay, yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. But it's basically the NBA selling NBA moments.
Mm,
Therefore, LeBron James doing a dunk, right? A crazy dunk,
okay.
and selling that exact 8 seconds of video um,
Oh,
to the
okay.
highest bidder.
Oh,
And I think there was some
wild.
that sold for
Okay.
like, yeah, some sold for like 200,000, $500,000. Like it was crazy.
It's like it's weird too because it's like you don't own LeBron James, right? But you
No.
own a camera angle and you it's like a
Yes.
video of that anyway. Wow. And
Mm-hmm.
it gets a little bit esoteric. But I
Yeah.
look, I wanted to interject and just give another
Mm-hmm.
thing. It's not just about bragging rights. That sounds a little bit negative. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
also to support the artist too.
Oh, a
That's
lot.
another thing that
Mm-hmm.
you can do to if you want to support the kind of art. One of the downsides about digital art these days is that, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, you can write, copy, save image, and like
Yeah,
you can have it, right? Even if you
yeah,
don't own it, you can have it, and you can have a copy. And so
yeah.
this is like a actual, I don't want to say tangible because it's intangible, but it's on the
Mm-hmm.
blockchain and it's
Yeah,
verifiable way to say like, hey, I supported this artist. And
yeah.
then there's also some speculative investing that goes into it, right?
Yes,
Because then you can
definitely.
theoretically sell this thing. So it's not permanent necessarily. It's permanent until you decide otherwise, right? So you could
Yeah.
say, hey, I really support this artist, but secretly, um, I want to show that I supported him in his early days. So I don't want to sell it
Yeah.
later when it's worth
Mm-hmm.
more. Or
Yeah.
maybe you're investing and you're looking for good artists and you're looking at the pieces that they've made and you say like,
Mm-hmm.
this is a really good investment. I'm going to buy this and then I'm going to sell it later. And that's how someone
Yeah.
feeds their family
Yeah,
or whatever.
exactly.
So it's not just bragging rights. We don't want to make it just too trivial, but
Yeah.
there's a couple different motivations I think people could have. So as far as I understand so far, and Steve,
Mm-hmm.
correct me where I'm wrong here, but
Yeah.
you've got just kind of speculative investors. You have people
Yeah.
that just really want to support the artist. You have people that
Yeah.
just like want bragging rights, and
Mm-hmm.
like there's also I think a fourth one which is just like people like to collect stuff. I
Yes.
like
Yes,
I
there's
was
a
on.
huge community of collectors.
I
Yeah,
have
a big
this.
one.
I have this urge, right, to collect stuff. It's
Mm-hmm.
terrible. It's dumb. It's kind of stupid. But look, I have it. I right
Yeah.
now I'm this is gonna date this episode, but it's basically I'm doing achievements inside of Fortnite so I can unlock different colors for this
Yeah.
tuna fish character, right? I'm never gonna use them. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not going to use them. I'm going to look at them 0.00001% of my life, right?
Yeah.
And yet I have to. Like I feel driven to get all of these
Mm-hmm.
stupid tuna fish characters. And like I'm just admitting that, right? But like
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's nice to like have stuff and I think somewhere that's like baked into our DNA as like
Mm-hmm.
some kind of survivalist. It's like you have to acquire stuff in order to survive out in the
Yes.
wild. Now that
Mm-hmm.
we're relatively comfortable, the need still is there, unfortunately. Like maybe it doesn't
Right?
need to be, but like it just
Yeah.
is. And so I think, recognizing that that's a part of the human experience, I think
Yeah.
we can forgive people a little bit for wanting to collect stuff. So are there any other motivations that you've seen?
Yeah. What you said that was a very interesting point because like one, so many digital artists had difficulty initially like selling their art, right? Because that was the problem. It's online, you can just copy paste it. But
Sure.
now this solves this issue for them. They can make finally like some money with their art. Some people had like two, three, 400,000 followers on Instagram for their art, but they couldn't monetize that, right? Because it's all digital, and now they're making like finally money with all that community that they have, right?
Sure, yeah.
So that's really great for them. And also something that I'll add is in the NFT in the NFT, you can add you can write in there that 5 or 10 or 15% of every secondary sale will go back to the artist.
Oh,
So,
I didn't know that.
yes, yes, in perpetuity, any secondary sale. So, therefore, the problems that like previous, even physical artists had with, oh, I do a painting,
Mm,
I sell it to somebody for $10,000, and then 20 years later, that person sells it for like 10 million. The
yeah.
artist now can still get a percentage of every sale. So that's great for them. It
Oh, that's
solves that
wild.
problem
Yeah.
already. And in terms of the collecting, something that's really cool is there's so many different types of art, art out there, art styles that you will for sure find something that you like, which is really interesting. So a problem that I found myself in is when I first got in it too, it was for just looking at what is this new technology, but I was also like, wow, people are saying you can make a lot of money, right? So like, let me buy one. But the second you start buying, it's weird enough, but you start getting like attached to some of the NFTs that you start buying, and you start wanting some more, and you start finding
Yeah.
artists that you just like the art, and for some weird reason,
Yeah.
it speaks to you. You see like a weird monkey with like some arrows on his heads, and then you're just like, this is funny, but for some reason I like it and I want to buy it and keep it, right? So it's
Sure.
really interesting how it works. So like I found that very interesting when you were talking to me about like collecting stuff and wanting like that fish thing in like the Fortnite game,
Yeah, yeah.
Like I sort of related to that.
Yeah. So it's something interesting. I guess I don't know if we fully understand it, but yeah, how it works. Let's go back to the
Hmm.
basics here, right? So
Yeah,
NFT, non-fungible token. It's just a
yeah,
certificate that says, "Hey, you own this digital thing." Could be a video, could
yeah,
be a picture of a painting, it could be a rendering. So I don't think we've
yeah,
even mentioned Blender yet and
yeah.
3D objects,
That's
which
true.
maybe we should go into next. It could
Yeah.
be music, I'm guessing, song, right? If it
Yes.
can be
Yeah.
video, it can certainly be
Yeah.
just audio.
Kings of Leon,
Mm.
sold an album as an NFT.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Man, there's so many directions you could go in with this. So yeah,
Yeah, I know.
let's.
So, yeah.
I
Oh.
was I was wondering. I think this is a little bit of a departure from physical assets in that the nice thing is that if you really don't have money, if
Mm-hmm.
you really are like decently poor, well, I've never used those
Yeah.
two words in the same sentence before.
Hmm.
Decently poor,
Yeah.
then you can still enjoy all of the art.
Yes.
And then you
Definitely.
and I think it removes maybe some of the guilt, right? Because you can say, hey, I'm going to support this person eventually when I'm on my feet and
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a little bit better, but right now I'm going to enjoy it, and the artist has offered their art to me for free, and
Mm-hmm.
somebody is kind of covering the cost of like feeding this starving artist, right? and so
Yeah.
and,
Exactly.
and so it's so
Yeah.
in some ways it gets a little bit rid of the guilt.
Yeah.
And I don't know. What do you think about that? I don't know, because that's different than physical asset where you paint a painting and then only
Mm-hmm.
one person has it, and if you happen to be over at their house, then you can look at it. But if it's in a vault, like so many paintings are on offshore vaults in business accounts, it's
Yeah.
unbelievable. So if you want
Yeah.
to go down
I know.
a rabbit hole, look that up about how
Yeah.
investment banks buy art and to evade taxes. So good times. But
Yeah. Yeah. That's a whole different thing.
but yeah, so tell me, I want to hear your thoughts on like digital assets and something that everyone can enjoy for free, but then, why people
Yeah.
would still want to buy it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's really nice because, as you said, everyone can just see all the art and enjoy it. And also, unlike the traditional art market, the price point is much lower, right? So even somebody that couldn't afford regularly like a piece of art for 2,000, 5,000, $10,000 or more,
Mm-hmm.
now he can buy a piece of art for $50 or $100 or $150, right?
Yeah.
Which I feel it opens the door for more people to even be able to buy art in the first place. And as you said, since it's on the internet, well, anybody that has access to the internet has access to seeing that art, right? And there's another aspect which is it's a whole other like it's a whole other box that we can go into. And I remember I remember that because you said Blender and 3D, right?
Yeah.
And NFTs are very present into something we call the metaverse. I don't know if you've heard about the metaverse, but basically the metaverse is a virtual world. So anybody that has played video games sorts of understand that it's a virtual world. But the metaverse is usually built on the blockchain where you can even buy pieces of land now, and the land is going to be represented through an NFT to say
Mm.
that you own that piece of land within that world.
Yeah.
And for example, there's a metaverse called Super World, and what they did is that they recreated the exact world we live in,
Yeah.
but virtually. So right now, I don't know where you live, but I live in Montreal. I can go and buy my block of where I live if nobody else already bought it for $200-300,
Sure.
but in Ethereum.
Ethereum, yeah.
Um, yeah, Ethereum, my bad again, because they usually it uses cryptocurrency to buy NFTs usually. And Super World, their goal is one, there's a bunch of you can buy a bunch of pieces of land with NFTs, and also NFTs that you bought from artists, you can showcase them on the land that you own now.
Mm.
So,
Oh,
and then
wow. Okay.
yes, yes, and then I can send you a link, and that link would bring you to my estate or land that I own, and you can see
Sure.
everything that I put there, and they're gonna be 3D renders or 2D renders that are all NFTs that you bought from various places. So it gets really big because it's
Wow.
like a new technology going within a new technology, and that's where the future is heading to now.
Oh my
So
goodness. Yeah.
yes.
I think
So
we've
it's quite
lost everybody
crazy.
at this point except the true nerds.
Maybe. Yes.
This is great. Yeah, so that is wild. Yeah, so just
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of it like Google Maps. You zoom in, and
Hmm.
instead of like the picture of your house, there's just kind of like an empty space, and then you can just kind of see all your stuff. So
Yes.
that's that is pretty wild.
Yeah,
And
it's really wild.
it's open on the blockchain. So if you had infinite amount of years in your life, you could go through the blockchain and look up all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so it is really useful to have like an address. And so
Hmm.
people have wallet addresses, and then they have this. Anyway, an address is just a thing that points you to a location of something, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
basically.
I feel like we're getting into philosophy here, like and
Right?
definitions of like what words even mean. So,
Yeah, basically. And people like to compare the future where we might be going as a little bit like Ready Player One, the
sure,
movie.
sure, sure.
I don't know if you saw it
Terrified of
because
that.
there's
I'm terrified of that.
exactly because they're saying that you know how there was Web 1.0 and then the Web 2.0 was really the Instagrams, Facebooks. We became very like our digital presence is very
Digital
important,
digital
and
stores, yeah.
exactly, and how now this is Web 3.0, where in the future, instead of, oh, I heard about this person, they seem interesting, let me Google their name and go on their Instagram, Facebook, see a bit of who they are, it'll be, oh, let me go on their wallet and see what they own, who they are through their ownership, if they own a piece of land or a house somewhere in 3D that I can go and visit and see how their house is online. Digital presence is just going to become even more crazy.
MTV
But
Cribs, but like 2.0.
basically,
Goodness
exactly.
gracious.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, so this is more like now where you can get into like a rabbit hole as you're saying,
All of
like
these, yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
But this Pandora's box is open, right?
Hmm.
So we're just
Yes.
showing you the front ends of all of these paths. It sounds like.
Hmm.
So
Basically,
I
yeah.
want to zoom back out a little bit and zoom back
Hmm.
into you, and
Yeah.
I want to talk about, you obviously got into art, you got into technology because of what, again, putting words in your mouth, but basically what you saw technology could do for you.
Yeah.
What is a good way, say if we have a student in one of our classes, or if a parent is listening to this and they're
Hmm.
curious about, they have clearly an artistic young child,
Yeah.
um, and they see, well, maybe you don't have to be an absolute starving artist, right?
Hmm.
Because as and that's kind of been that way all through history, right? Is the
Yeah.
stereotype of the starving artist. What
Yeah.
are some ways a child could get in and start experimenting with art and technology, and how those things get together? Like
Hmm.
if you were Steve but little Steve, like
Yeah.
how would you do it over?
Okay. That's a very interesting question. Um, I would definitely say whatever it is, it can be photography, it can be gaming and wanting to build games, it can be coding, whatever. Um, really at first focus on being the best at your art, you know?
Yeah.
Focus on the art and being good. That is really the number one thing to do. And number two is, I wouldn't say like marketing, but just showcasing your work and not being afraid of what people will say.
Okay.
Because
It's hard.
regardless of what you do, regardless of how talented you are, some people are gonna hate it and some people are gonna love it, you know? So don't be scared and don't be mad if there's some people that don't understand it. That's completely normal. And there's gonna be for sure some people that are gonna love it too, and
Mm.
it's just to work on your art and put it out there. If you're able to do those two things, right? The rest, I already know the rest will come into place. We can go into the nitty-gritty of like, okay, you got to do a little bit of marketing here, put it on Instagram, put it on there, try to make some connections with other people, other artists, connect with them, collab. But those are more details that are, yes, interesting, but if you focus on making your art regardless of what other people say, and doing the best you can and just showcasing it to the world, the rest, I'm telling you, will for sure come
Hmm.
into place. Like that's what there's many artists that I know that they worked on their stuff, but they were just too scared to show it, right? And the
Interesting.
number one thing is always you gotta just show it out there and not be scared of what others will say. That's really the most helpful thing for artists, because artists are very like sensitive of their work, and I know it myself because that is something that like kept me from becoming even better, which was I'm scared of what others are going to say. I don't want to put it out there, or oh, I'm not good enough, oh, I don't think that this will be good enough, right? So it's really like
Yeah.
just put it out there, to be honest.
Yeah, it's so interesting you mentioned this, right? Because
Hmm.
um I create stuff, I create videos and courses. I develop curriculum for our educational courses and stuff. And gosh,
Hmm.
it's never perfect, you know?
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
I have that feeling that, you know, if I could attempt to use the label creative for myself, I would say
Hmm.
it's tough because I know how I could make it better, but then something's got to get out there at the end
Hmm.
of the day.
Yeah.
And so I think that's tough, especially if it's your first like work, you know?
Yes,
It's like
definitely.
that's tough because but then you just I think hopefully I can finish the sentence here before stuttering too
Hmm.
much. But sometimes you have to just put something out there. And if you say
Yeah.
like and a lot of people hate when you qualify with like, "Hey, this is my first work" or whatever. But
Hmm.
you can say it. If it really is your first, you can say that. You can say like, "Hey,
Yeah.
this is probably bad, but I like it and
Hmm.
it's out here in the universe." And then you just
Hmm.
shut social media off. You come back to
Yeah.
it the next day when you've had some time to breathe, and
Yeah.
and you get some feedback that's good, you get some feedback that's bad, and
Hmm.
then you just kind of learn to incorporate that. I guess so. How would you either separate yourself from your art, or do you choose to separate yourself from like the comments instead of your art? Like, how does that work emotionally?
Um, the thing is, I really started by focusing on the art, and at first I was really scared to put it out, right?
Mm.
So I really made my skills better and just worked on my skills. And something funny about that is the better you are, the more you see the flaws or the bad things in your work, and then that makes me want to put it out even less.
Yeah,
Which is,
yeah.
so I got into that spiral. But what happened is when I finally decided to put work out, right, most of the comments were positive. When I built also like a website that was really interactive for a nonprofit. And when I built my first website, now I still see all the flaws and like, oh, this is not good and this is bugging. But whenever people are posting it or saying, "Oh, this is the website," I just hear good comments. So I find it funny because I actually am the one that has the most critical things to say about the work versus
Mm.
other people around me. So it's kind of funny because when you ask me like, "Oh, how do I deal with it or whatever?" It's more like I actually need to deal more with myself than with others because other people actually think it's really nice. Sometimes they will be like, "Oh, I see a bit like why or here you could have done this or done that." But like overall they find it really like they're like, "This is really dope. This is so nice. Like how did you do this?" And it's usually me who I'm like, for example, a video will come up of like the short film I did like 3 years ago, and I'll start to be like, "Oh, this is a bit cringy. I see that like the video warped a bit here. Oh no, I could have done this better. Like there's a bit of a
Yeah.
silent moment with that angle," and I start feeling like all feeling a bit shy. But other people are like, "Oh wow, this is amazing." They don't see it, right? So it's more like how to deal with your own criticism than with others, at least for the moment. That's how it is
Yeah.
for me.
It's so funny. My wife's a graphic designer, right? And so she's
Mm-hmm.
educated me. And artists have this burden that
Mm-hmm.
you don't always talk about, but you mentioned it a little bit there, which is like now you know that the whole world is designed, right?
Mm-hmm.
That that Mexican restaurant with Comic Sans is the font, right?
Yeah.
You know somebody picked that. But
Yeah.
but to somebody who's not a typographist or is
Mm-hmm.
somebody or typographer, what do I say?
Yeah.
I'm like making up words here. It's fine. We're talking about NFT. We're making stuff up.
Yeah,
Now
exactly.
that like the way you view videos as a
Mm-hmm.
creator is totally different than the way
Yeah.
you view videos not making them. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I watch YouTube now, I'm also thinking like, what angles are they using? What cameras are they using? What's their lighting like? Why is their lighting that
Mm-hmm.
way? How is their color graded? Like, I never knew any of these questions to even ask. I didn't even know these categories. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
resolution are they using? Are they doing 60 frames per second like YouTube
Yeah.
enables, or are they trying to get more cinematic and do like
Yeah.
24 frames a second?
Mm-hmm.
What are they trying to be like all avant-garde by jacking their contrast up? Anyway, so people who do videos and photography and stuff like know what these words are. And I know what
Yeah.
these words are, but I'm not good at any of them. I just like know they exist. And
Yeah.
so because I'm still in the learning phase myself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so that's the way it is. You have to just try and fail
Yeah.
and well, let me get back to my point, which was like you have this burden of making like a good art, at least theoretically. I'm just gonna trust that your
Mm-hmm.
stuff is good. Um,
Yeah.
and then you have to look at the world and see like, man, that stuff isn't really good. you know?
Yeah.
So it's like
That's true too.
it's like you not only are you critical of yourself, but you're also a little bit critical of other things because you now know how things could actually be better. And
Yeah.
so I think sometimes the challenge of being good, which this isn't talked about very often because it sounds super snooty, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like you have to learn to be grateful for like people's efforts, like
Yeah.
almost like separately from like how good something actually technically is. You have to be like
Mm-hmm.
grateful for their efforts. And I
Yeah.
think in that way, when someone's in a coding class and I see them grade their first little video game and I say, hey, you did a really great job, what I didn't mean is that they could go sell it on Steam or in the Epic Game Store, like
Mm-hmm.
where you can sell video games, but that like their effort was good and that they did
Yeah.
a great job. And sometimes I'll
Mm-hmm.
compliment them specifically, like, ooh, I really like your color selection there. Oh, I love the
Yeah.
logic that you put in the code. Or
Mm-hmm.
your code is really neat. And so those will be like more specific praises, like
Yeah.
instances of praise. But um, I think you're right. We have to have patience for ourselves and almost
Yeah.
sometimes remove like you are not the product. Like you're not,
Yeah.
you're the creator, but you can change and get better. But
Mm-hmm.
you're the thing that you produce,
Yeah.
is not you. Maybe it was you a week ago, but maybe not now.
Exactly.
What do you think about that?
Right?
Are you able to detach, or are they all kind of your little babies and you want to protect them? And
I'm once it's out,
sure.
I'm able to detach for sure, but I always like whenever I still see my work,
Mm-hmm.
I always have this little thing where I'm like, oh, I could have done this, or I could have done that, or I should have added this regardless. There's
Sure.
always that little thing. So, me, I always say like to anybody that feels this way, if you feel that way, it's okay. And feeling that way means that you became better than what you were in the past, right?
Mm.
And who would want to stay where they're at and not become better, right? So it's already a good sign if you're seeing a bunch of things that you're like, oh, if today I made this, I would do it like this or like that because it would be much more better. This means that you're keeping on growing every day. So I feel it's a good thing in a way also. Um, Definitely. And I like what you were saying about what you tell to those young kids that code stuff, right? And something that I would add to that is you always gotta keep on working, right? Because you can have talent, but I personally believe that talent is maybe 20 or 20% of it all. The rest is really hard work,
Mm-hmm.
dedication, and keeping on improving yourself. And I always say that because the top people in sports or music that I like, it can be like, for example, Kobe Bryant, right?
Sure.
He even says himself, other 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 NBA players used to train 4 or 5 hours a day. So I worked out like 10 hours a day, right? Just practicing my shot every day. So it's like, is it that he really has much more talent than everyone? Or it's also his drive, his discipline, how much he trains and crafts his art, right?
Yeah.
So I always say to anybody, if you really like something, become good at it. Put your heart into it, work at it. Don't become lazy or complacent. And the better you are, the more you should even train at it to keep getting better. Because sometimes like you do something really good and then you get a lot of compliments, so then you start being like, oh, I got it, and you start being a bit complacent. That has happened to me a little bit too. So it's like, nah, always become better at things and be grateful for how good you are and how better you can become also.
Yeah. It's almost useful. I like what you said because it's sometimes I think about what if I could go to my past self and slap
Hmm.
him around and be like, "Look, James, it's gonna be all right. Like you made it to
Hmm.
2021. The world was supposed to end at like 2012, and then in 2020,
Right?
it's like, look, dude, you at least made it to 31. Okay, you figured it
Hmm.
out." And then teleport back to the future, with not saying anything that could break time, space, reality.
Hmm.
But then I also think like I wonder what future me would say to come back because that's a
Hmm.
different guy. It's a different guy.
Yeah. Hmm.
What is he gonna
Definitely.
say? He'd be like, you need to buckle up. You need to really get your life in order. I don't know. Maybe he says, the same thing. Maybe it's gonna be okay. You're gonna have
Hmm.
some fun with NFTs and lose a lot of money, or or it's gonna be great. I don't know. I tend to be an optimist, and I tend to
Hmm.
I want to be that cool James in the future. I don't know what he's gonna look
Hmm.
like exactly. I don't know what he's gonna do. I don't know if he's gonna have super big muscles. I mean, like I'm praying, but I'm not working out right now, so we gotta figure that out. But like, what?
Right?
Have a little patience with yourself. Who you are
Hmm.
today is not necessarily who you are going to be tomorrow, and who you're going to be
Hmm.
tomorrow is based on some decisions and who
Hmm.
you're around and who you're associating with. A
Yeah,
question I have
definitely.
about this like who you associate with thing, because I think that might be interesting too. Would you say that you would be different if someone never approached you to take photos?
Um, I think that I might have not. I would have for sure done something artistic. Like, for
Sure.
example, music. I've always been into it since I'm a young kid. But who knows? I might have never been into like photography. Like, I always
Mm,
think about that, and I'm always like, it's crazy how life works because there could be like a single small little thing that if that didn't happen at that exact moment, your whole life would be totally different. The people you know now, the spaces you're in, what you're doing could be totally different
we wouldn't be
just because of
talking,
that
right?
one
Yeah.
single event. Yeah, exactly. Like it's really crazy. So I find that really interesting because if that person never told me, hey yo, let's do pictures, like I like your style, and I wouldn't have said yes, then I wouldn't have met the other photographer that messaged me after. I would have
Hmm.
never gone into photography, which wouldn't have made me go into videography, which made me meet also within all those experiences so many other people, right? And I
Yeah.
learned from them too. And all this made me go from, because I was in finance at school, to marketing, because I was like, I still want to stay in business school, but I want to find something where there's more creativity.
Sure.
So like I probably wouldn't have changed programs, and therefore I wouldn't have done a master's, and therefore maybe I wouldn't even be here for NFTs, right? So like it's
Right.
really interesting how that one single event changed, like affected so much, maybe, right? You
And it's
never
hard
know.
to say.
Maybe
Maybe
not,
you would
but
have turned out pretty close to the
e-
same, right?
exactly. You
But
never
we
know.
don't know. Yeah, we can.
Hmm.
This is our timeline, right? This
Yeah.
is how it's played out so far.
Hmm.
I do think though, I'm grateful to that person who walked up to you that one day. You know, that's
Yeah.
great. I do think in this kind of digital age that we're in, I think there is a downfall, and I think sometimes it's hard to reach out to people in real life and get to know people, but I think that's still really important. And I
Hmm.
think getting a mentor, someone who's smarter and older and
Yeah.
wiser than you, is so important. Um, Believe it or not, not all old guys and gals are meant to oppress you, but a lot of people just want to help you out. Like they
Yeah.
want to share their knowledge, dude. Everybody's gonna die, okay?
Yeah.
And what old people tend to do, I'm just, I hope this doesn't offend anyone. I am sure I'm going to be like this when I'm old. But like a lot of
Yeah.
people, they don't want to go to the grave like not having left anything for anyone else. They want to kind
Yeah.
of share what they know. Even kind of stingy old people, they want to do something. And so,
Hmm.
talk to somebody, learn some stuff, grow your social network, like your real one,
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
your actual friends.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. I mean, it exposed you to some stuff. Honestly, I wouldn't be at Coder Kids. I wouldn't be running this company if my friend hadn't started Coder Kids and asked me to join,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so some things the universe just hands to you on a silver platter
Hmm.
and
Right.
says, "Hey James, hey Steve, check this
Hmm.
out. I got a good one for you."
Definitely. Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I guess, you can thank God,
Hmm.
and uh and that's about all you can do, cuz
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to pay it forward when an opportunity comes. But you also want to
Yeah,
be in that
definitely.
position, so if an opportunity does come, you can receive it, you can accept it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's a trick, man.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's really crazy how things just happen like this. And when you think about it, sometimes you're like, is this just purely a coincidence, or is there something that was meant to be, Like
Yeah.
it can get really like when you think about it, you can get very like philosophical about it.
For sure. Well, I was a philosophy minor, so I'm sure we can another day. Well, I think this podcast has been long enough. All those moms who've
Yeah.
been listening, You have
right?
suffered long enough. Thank you so much
Yeah, right.
for making it to minute what,
Mhm.
54 at this point. You've been incredible. If your kids
Mhm.
are artistic and you're willing to let them try it out, it's
Mhm.
better to experiment when you're younger than to wait a super long time. And
Yeah,
hopefully
mhm.
we can provide some avenues for that. So anyway, thanks so much for coming on the program, Steve.
Yeah,
Very
no
much
problem.
appreciated it. Maybe we'll have to do another one. Dude, you got to release your own NFT. I want to buy one, right? Dude, you
Right?
all this talk about like marketplaces and like
Yeah,
all dude, like I have like digital currency. I have like I think $400 in Dogecoin right now. So like,
yeah,
dude, you got to drop something because
yeah,
I want a 3D rendering or of like who knows what, right? But like
yeah.
hit me up, let me know. And
Yes, I will.
we'll put your profiles and everything in the YouTube description of
Hmm.
this episode, obviously, and
Yeah,
any way that people can reach back out to you, they can see in all those notes below. But um,
yeah,
yeah, is
yeah.
there
That
anything that you think I left out that you'd like to say?
um two things. One is
Oh, I
a
missed two
question that
things.
you
Yikes.
asked before. Yeah, it's a question that you asked before, but I didn't get into it. You said, where can I just go look at NFTs that I can buy, right? And it was just to give like two, three places for if there's anybody listening that wants to see what it's about.
Yeah.
I'll give like three websites. One is OpenSea dot IO. It's
Okay.
written like open, OPEN CSEA dot IO. Um, Another website is Super Rare.
Super rare.
Um, yeah, Super Rare. You just Google Super Rare, it'll come up. And a third one, which is a popular one because people can buy NFTs with just their credit card, so they don't need to have a wallet on that one. It's
Mm.
Nifty Gateway, niftygateway.com. Um, I'm sure if you want, I'll send you the links, or if you find them so that you can put them in the description or like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
like that
We'll
for
put them
if
in.
people are
Yeah, for sure.
interested in checking them out. Yeah. And and the second thing I wanted to say is, especially for those kids that are artistic, nowadays, if you're able to put artistry and creativity mixed with technology, there's so much demands for jobs in that in right now.
Mm.
Um, Especially with like NFTs and technology and metaverses and whatever that are coming about. Like there's big companies already in that space, right? There's like Apple that is working on Apple glasses, which is augmented reality, where NFTs will be important within that field.
Yeah.
There's people that I know that were, but not personally, just person people out there that started gaming and then started building games, and because they built games, they knew how to do 3D avatars and all that kind of stuff, and they became really prominent in the NFT space because they did 3D art. And there's people right now like Snapchat and TikTok that are hiring them to be able to do 3D art that will show in metaverses or through Snapchat glasses or things like that. So it's just to say, whatever type of art you're doing, have an eye on how that can link in any type of way to technology, because the past thing on, oh, artists, they're gonna be struggling out there, it's false today. Today I can
Hmm.
tell you there's so much demand for them, so much. There's a bunch of jobs for anybody that's interested in coding and 3D and making video games and photography and all those kinds of things. So really look into that, because there's a lot of great jobs for you in the future. I see it, and I find it crazy how much they're demanded right now. There's actually not enough of them. So like
That's
You know,
crazy.
don't let nobody tell you that, you're gonna be a struggling artist.
Right. And there's no like age barrier technically either, right? Like you could mint
No.
mint
Yeah.
an NFT, whatever. Like I could make one today theoretically, like garbage. It could
You
be
can be
garbage, right?
90
But
years old or 5 years old. It doesn't matter.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, I'm going to take a picture of the crayon that my son drew all over the walls, and we'll post
Hmm.
that one.
Right?
That'll be
Exactly.
that'll be like Jacob's childhood NFT, $1,000. We'll go ahead. I'm kidding, but that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Did you said there were two things? Was that you?
Yeah. Yeah, I said the two things. The first one was telling you about the websites you can see for NFTs, and the
Yeah.
second was about the future potential of them. There's so many jobs in there, and
Yeah.
creativity is so important within that world. So the rhetoric of you're gonna be a struggling artist, that's false. Nowadays, if you're able to connect your art with new technologies, you got everyone is so demand artists are so demanded in that space.
Sure.
So you know don't worry about that, go for your art, be very good at it,
Sure.
you'll find a way to like be very successful.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for coming on. I keep
Yeah,
calling
no
you Steve.
problem.
I hope I can call you that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, that's that's great. Thank you for having me. It was really
absolutely.
a nice like experience being with you on this podcast.
Well, sounds good. Hey, I enjoyed it too. We'll catch you later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.